Okay, inheritance in C#. You may have heard the word before, you may not have heard it, but I'm going to explain it right now. So what is inheritance in C#? Basically, the core principle around inheritance is to increase code reusability. And that is very important, even in terms of object-oriented programming, even not in terms of object-oriented programming. The thing is, if we copy and duplicate code, then our software will eventually be really hard to maintain. It's going to have a large file size and you're going to have a lot of trouble. So always reuse code where possible. Let's take a look at an example of inheritance in C#. So what I have here is a very basic application. I've created a new animal object and I have an animal class for that. Let's take a look at the animal class. So here's my animal class. It has two private fields here, name and age. So the name of the animal might be Rocky and Rocky's age might be 7. Like Rocky might be a dog, for example. I have two basic methods here that just echoes the name of the animal to the console window, and also another method here that echoes the age of the animal. And I have two C# properties here, two public properties that allow control over my private fields here, name and age. So it's a very simple class. So I've created an animal object here. I've set the name property to Rocky and Rocky's age to 7. So now I'm just using these methods here that just echo these values to the screen. So if we run the application now, so you can see it's very simple. My name is Rocky, I am 7 years old. So that's a basic animal class there. So now let's say I want to expand my application. Maybe I want a piece of software where I can create a zoo of animals. So I might want a dog class, a rat class, a cat class, a hamster class. You know, I might want maybe 20 classes and each one representing an animal in its own way. So if we come over here now, we can right click the project here and we can go to add new class, and let's say we want to create a dog class, and this class will have everything to do with a dog, for example. Maybe our zoo has hundreds of dogs and we want to manage our dogs in its very own dog class. It's perfectly reasonable. Again, we might have a cat class, a hamster class, lots of things. But what we want, our dog class, we want all of this functionality here of this animal class, because our dog will have a name, it will have an age, but maybe it has some other things, like maybe some methods to do with digging, and not all animals can dig, for example. So maybe something specific to a dog, but we kind of do want this core functionality. You know, our dog is going to have a name and an age, so I want all this stuff, and I'm going to put that in my dog class. So now I can kind of build on this. I can add some methods for, you know, the dog digging or the dog begging for treats or maybe certain dog tricks. But the problem is we've copied all this core functionality, which is going to work no problem. But the problem is when I have another class, maybe a cat class or a guinea pig class, again, I want them to have this core functionality as well. And the problem is I'm going to have all this information in about 20 different classes, and it's going to be really hard to maintain. And not only that, it's going to increase, like I say before, the file size of the application. So how do we get around this problem here? Well, C# has something we can utilize, and that is called inheritance. So inheritance in C#, it's very easy to get started, but perhaps more complex to master. But let's get started and have a look how we can do that. So we don't need any of that functionality in our class. What we can do is inherit the functionality of the animal class. So all of this kind of stuff here, all of the public stuff anyway. And we can go to our dog class and we can use a colon and then type in the class we want to inherit the features from. So in this case, it's going to be animal. So just by doing that one, very small piece of code here, now our dog class knows about all of the public methods here and any public properties we may have in this class. So let's take a look at an example right now. So you can see our dog class is, perfectly empty. Our animal class has all this logic. Let's create a new object for a dog and see if we can actually use some of these properties and methods right here. So let's create a new object for a dog. I'll just call him dog. So we can set the name to the dog to Bingo. Why not? And the dog's age, we can set it to 3, for example. And I'm just going to rename these. So you can see here, there's no red lines under these properties. There's no errors using these methods. And we can even run the application, no problem. And now look, my name is Bingo. I am 3 years old. So you can see here the dog has inherited all of the functionality from animal, all of the public methods and properties from animal. So you can see here's the dog class right here. It's totally empty, but you can see we're reusing all of this code here, which is really efficient, and that is kind of the point of inheritance. So in this example here, we say animal is either the parent class, like how you have a parent and a child, where the child might inherit the ability to breathe or bleed or eat, things in your DNA. This is sort of where the terminology comes from. So the animal in this case would be the parent, and the dog would be the child. But some other synonyms for that would be animal is the base class or the superclass. And dog would be the child class, the derived class, or the subclass. They're all synonyms, but they basically mean the same kind of thing. When considering inheritance in C#, you have to consider one thing. One thought must be going in your head, and that is a. So, is a dog an animal? Is a cat an animal? So, is a rat an animal? If so, then inheritance is perfect for you, and you're not misunderstanding the concept. So always consider when you're inheriting in C#, is it this? Is a. So it's an is a relationship. So inheritance is a really lengthy subject, but one other thing I'm going to explain so it's absolutely clear. What I'm going to do, I'm going to define a method inside our dog class, which is unique to a dog. And I want that to be maybe bark, for example, because all dogs bark. So let me create a method where the dog would bark. So you can see I've created a method here called bark, and all it does, it writes to the console window, woof woof. So very simple. And just like in humans, if you have a parent, you can inherit things when you're born, like I mentioned before. But the parent can't inherit from the child. For example, if the child has a new ability, like barking, for example, then the animal has no knowledge of this, just like in a parent-child relationship. If your child has a new skill, maybe they became an artist, it doesn't mean the parent's an artist. Inheritance doesn't work that way. So let me show you an example of that now. So we've defined a method in the dog class called bark. So if I go to our main kind of program right here, if I put a little dot after animal here, you can see animal has no knowledge of the bark method. It's not even in this list, and that's expected. However, if we go to the dog here and type in dog, we have our method we've just created called bark. So we can run the application now so you can see that. So you can see here, woof woof. So the dog is barking, and then we're just echoing the name and the age of the dog. So that is a very basic example of inheritance in C#.